We're back as the Richard Syrett Show continues on News Talk, Saga 960 AM.
A government watchdog has sued the federal government on behalf of OpenTheBooks.com to obtain access to Dr. Anthony Fauci's financial disclosure records. Adam Andrzejewski is founder and CEO of OpenTheBooks.com. Adam, welcome. How are you?
Great to be on the program, Richard. Thank you for your interest in our work.
Tell us a little bit about OpenTheBooks.com.
So at OpenTheBooks.com, our mission is quite simply summarized as every dime online in real time. And to that end, last year, we did something pretty unique. We filed 40,500 Freedom of Information Act requests on nearly every single substantial government body across the United States. So that's at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. And we were successful capturing nearly every single public employee's salary and pension record, for example. And we've got, the federal checkbook, the line-by-line vendor spending all the way back to the year 2001. And we do have the state checkbooks in 49 out of 50 states. We don't have California, but we're suing them. And we're in front of a Sacramento state court judge on November 19th in summary judgment. And we expect to win there as well and crack open the checkbook in California in the Golden State for the first time.
So you asked Judicial Watch, which is a government watchdog, to sue the federal government to obtain Dr. Fauci's financial disclosure records. He's a public employee. Shouldn't those be available to anyone at any time? Why would you have to sue to get those?
Well, it shouldn't take a subpoena or a lawsuit to be able to get Fauci's basic employment documents. So here's what we asked for. And to put this in a little bit of context, back in January of this year, we were the organization, our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com, that looked at our federal employment data, salary data, and found that Dr. Anthony Fauci was the number one most highly compensated federal employee. So he out-earned everybody. The president, 4-star generals in the United States military, 4.3 million of his colleagues within the federal agencies and the Post Office, Department of Defense. And so many people had a question as to how this scientist at a sub-agency of a sub-agency, there's the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the National Institutes of Health, and then underneath that is Fauci's agency. So how can this guy out-earn everybody? And so we had questions too, and we filed this Freedom of Information Act request with the National Institutes of Health, and we wanted copies of Anthony Fauci's employment contract. And what's important is all additions, amendments, and changes to that contract over the years. We wanted a copy of his job description, and we wanted a copy of his conflict of interest disclosures and his financial disclosures. Now, all of this is legal paperwork subject to sunshine, and we wanted to see it. And they slow walked it, and they produced hardly any of it. And so last week we got serious. We partnered with Judicial Watch, and we sued them.
So the fact that you have to sue to get disclosure suggests what? That he's hiding something?
Well, they're acting like they have a lot to hide. So, Richard, they did disclose a small portion of some old records. And when we took a look at those, we made national news last week because we found out the reason why Fauci is the most highly paid. And it started in 2004 with a memo during the George W. Bush administration. And the memo specifically lays out the reason he makes the most money. Fauci back in 2004 got a permanent pay adjustment. And the reason for that permanent pay adjustment that continues to this day is because he was tip of the spear on bioterrorism. In other words, Richard, Dr. Fauci was paid to prevent the next pandemic starting in 2004.
He's paid to prevent it. How's he doing so far?
Well, the real question out there, hopefully will be answered over the next couple of months, is whether the firemen became the arsonists. Because as what's coming to light, even as exposed by the Washington Post, Fauci was funding, in contravention of two presidents, Obama and Trump, very controversial, very dangerous experiments. These experiments are called gain-of-function experiments. And the Washington Post outlines since 2012 through 2020 that Fauci and his agency funded 17 of those experiments for over $40 million. And now critics have always said that these experiments are very dangerous because if there's a lab leak or if the virus that they soup up and they try to make this virus technologically able to jump from bats or animals to humans, and then in the lab they try to come up with the vaccine to solve the pandemic that they've created in their lab. This is very dangerous. And the critics always said, if that virus jumps outside the lab on a leak, we've got a problem. Or if it gets handed off to nefarious actors, bad actors, we have a problem.
All right, Adam, we'll take a quick timeout. We'll come back and discuss further. Adam Andrzejewski, CEO, founder of OpenTheBooks.com. Back with more in 3 minutes. Don't go away.
Let's get back at it on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. It's the Richard Syrett Show.
Adam Andrzejewski stays with us, CEO, founder of OpenTheBooks.com. They have asked a government watchdog, Judicial Watch, to sue the federal government to obtain access to Dr. Fauci's financial disclosure records. One of the documents you asked for was his current job description. On the face of it, that seems like a rather mundane sounding document. Don't we already know what his job description is? Why are you looking for that document specifically?
Well, this is very important because it specifically would outline his duties and responsibilities. And I want to just put one key point out there. So we know that the National Institutes of Health currently, they employ, according to our data captured at openthebooks.com, they employ 80 public relations officers. Yet everybody, since the pandemic started, has been treated to Anthony Fauci doing public affairs, public relations on the pandemic. And so we want to know if public affairs is in his job description. There's a little known law called the Gillette Amendment that dates back to 1913, and it expressly bars the publicity man, the bureaucrat that gets out there and does propaganda in public affairs and PR campaigns. You can't do that. So we want to see if PR in public affairs is actually in Dr. Anthony Fauci's job description after 400 of these events and the agency itself employing 80 PR specialists.
All right, that's fascinating. I wasn't aware of that. And what about the conflict of interest documents? What do you think you might potentially uncover there?
So we want to know if Dr. Anthony Fauci is receiving royalties from pharmaceutical companies. Over at the National Institutes of Health, on current employees and employees that used to work at NIH, there's up to 1,000 employees or former employees receiving royalties from companies. And this is perfectly legal. However, we want to know if Dr. Anthony Fauci has any conflicts of interest on this. And look, these are basic documents he has to file every single year. We want a copy of that, and we're serious about obtaining it.
So again, let's talk about this database of all royalties paid. Royalties for what? Drug patents?
Yes. So researchers at NIH, they contribute alongside pharmaceutical companies. For instance, alongside Moderna on the development of the COVID vaccine, you had researchers in Fauci's agency working with Moderna on developing that vaccine as right away when that pandemic hit in March of 2020. If you Google, you'll come up with news articles that that Fauci's agency at the National Allergies and Infectious Diseases Agency, they were working with Moderna to develop the vaccine. There's legal standards then as to whether those individuals working for the federal government can be compensated on royalties from the pharmaceutical company. Now, this database, according to agency policy, is supposed to be on their website since the middle 2000s, and we can find no evidence of it. So we filed a Freedom of Information Act request for it. When they didn't produce it, we sued them for it.
If it was to be discovered, and this is speculation, that Dr. Fauci is receiving royalties for a drug that could be used as a therapeutic for COVID, for example, and he is, let's say, promoting that particular drug over ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, et cetera, that would be a clear conflict of interest, would it not?
Well, all these things would invite ethical considerations. And so I don't want to speculate, Richard. I just want to see the documents. And unfortunately, we had to sue for them.
What's the next step, Adam? How difficult is it to is it like a FOIA request?
Right. So that we started with the Freedom of Information Act request. And now when they didn't produce the database of royalties and Anthony Fauci's basic employment documents, we partnered with Judicial Watch. We filed that suit. The agency's actually been served with the suit. So we're on record with them and with the court. And the next step next month is a hearing in front of a federal court judge.
And if the judge were to rule in your favor that they must release these documents, what would the timeline look like? How quickly would they have to disclose?
Well, I think it would be pretty much immediate. I think this thing this is a pretty cut and dried case. I don't think they can wiggle out of this one. There's a lot of precedent on all of these different points. And I think they have to produce the database of royalties. And I think they have to produce rapidly Dr. Anthony Fauci's employment documents. And look, we were very kind. I mean, we waited 9 months, probably longer, and we're more patient than what we should have been on this. And back in June, I sent Dr. Fauci a personal email to his account, putting him on notice that his agency was in violation of federal sunshine laws regarding his employment documents. So he knew as well.
Once you receive the documents, if and when you receive the documents, will you open source those? What'll happen?
Yeah, we're a transparency organization at openthebooks.com. So everybody listening to the program, come to our website, sign up for our emails, become a part of the organization, and we'll keep you updated in real time. And you'll have first access to the documents once we get them.
Openthebooks.com. Adam Andrzejewski, CEO and founder. Appreciate your work and your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.